community building through diverse small group gatherings, such as the recently relaunched Wine and Spirit Group. This affinity group is for people in their 30s and 40s-ish. And our next gathering will be a potluck on December 16th. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. I want to take a moment to extend a very warm welcome to everyone who's visiting us for the first time. If you're joining us online, please fill out the visitor form in the link in the description. We'd love to connect with you. Part of our mission is to connect bravely, and we're glad that you're sharing part of your Sunday here. Many of us were once also seeking something larger than ourselves to which we could belong, a sense of rootedness to hold us as we create meaning together. We do that well here, though not perfectly. In this congregation, we strive not for perfection, but for authenticity and connection. Whether it's your first time in worship with us or your 100th, we hope that you'll find questions here that stretch you, people to befriend you, and liberal religious values that challenge you to join us in loving boldly, living justly, and welcoming radically.
A few announcements briefly. I want to share that our church auction was a great success. More than 80 of us gathered for a lasagna dinner and a live auction. Altogether, and I'm still staggered by this, we raised more than $21,000. Which I think is more than double what we'd budgeted for it, right? It's remarkable. So deep thanks to everyone who made it happen, the auction team, the kitchen elves, everyone who donated, who bid, and who ate so much lasagna. Two other upcoming community events. Thanksgiving Day, if you don't have other plans, if you want a place to go for Thanksgiving dinner, gather here at church for a potluck Thanksgiving dinner. We've already got 24 plus folks signed up. There's so much space for more. And then Friday, December 2nd, it's our monthly community night from 6 to 8. Stop by for potluck dinner, followed by caroling in the neighborhood or in the Sky Room for anyone who doesn't want to venture out. Deborah, our music director, who's out sick today, and Sam is graciously stepping in at the last minute. Deborah would also want me to say, though, that on that Friday, December 2nd, there will be an ugly sweater contest. So be prepared. Friends, will you take a breath with me? And another. At the beginning of the service, always I feel a sense of arriving into the space, which is not just about arriving into the physical space or the YouTube channel, but arriving internally into a place where hearts start to open, where we reconnect with difficult things, sometimes that we've been pushing away or trying not to face, and where we reconnect too with this compassion and connection. In the aftermath of a horrific mass shooting at an LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado Springs last night, which left 5 dead and 18 injured, I open with these words from my colleague and friend and mentor, Victoria Safford, who says this. She says, "People sometimes ask me, is this a gay church? And it is our privilege to answer that ours is absolutely, gladly, hopefully, and humbly, gaily a gay church, a gay tradition where everyone, even heterosexuals, are welcome." Right? and where everyone's experience is cherished as a sacred text. Because no one's experience, no one of us, none of our single experience of living and loving can be comprehensive. Because each of us holds the clues that the others need about how to live with dignity and joy as a human person. And none of us knows enough about that yet to be considered whole and complete and done. This is absolutely a gay church, even as ours is a gay world, if you look around. Gay church, straight church, people's church, a human congregation made holy by the holy hopes and fears and dreams of all who wish. Come in, we say. Come out, come in. We're all in this together. And so I won't speak of tolerance with its courteous clenched teeth and bitter resignation. I will not speak about acceptance of other people and some other kind of lifestyle. I can only look in laughing wonder at human life in all its incarnations. I can only taste in passing the breath of the Spirit of life on my mouth and understand our common longing to breathe in deep, deep gulps of it. I know that on some sad and disappointing days, these words describe the church that yet shall be, and not the church that is. I know. But is this a gay church? To answer is an act of creation. To answer this question and others is a privilege and a prophetic imperative. It is a joy and a duty and a holy sacrament. Will you join me in singing that hope, in singing that comfort, in singing that persistent belief that there is more yet? You rise in body or spirit. We'll start through twice all together, and then Sam and I will lead you as a round in two parts. I'll start off this side, and then Sam will lead the other side on in. This is, I know this rose will open.
All right, we'll sing the first two times together. I'll give a pitch, and we'll join in. All right? I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. Again. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will furl its wings. I know this rose will open. This rose will. I know my fear will. I know this. I know my soul will. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
The chalice is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. It is a cup of life, sustenance to quench our spirit's thirst, a cup of celebration and resolve, a flame of hope, a light to warm our souls and guide us home. I'd like to invite Pam Leland to light this morning's chalice.
Good morning. On this Transgender Day of Remembrance, I stand before you as the proud mother of two deeply loved, gender non-conforming adult human beings. I have their permission and support to share this with you today. Both of my kids were assigned female at birth, otherwise known as AFAB. I didn't think twice about it when my eldest, Kay, was very clearly a tomboy growing up. Tomboys are generally accepted in our patriarchal society as children. It's generally expected that tomboys will eventually grow out of it once they hit their teens, yet my tomboy did not. With the onset of puberty, life became more challenging and confusing for Kay. There was a growing disconnect between who they felt they truly were inside, in their heart, and between their ears, and what their body was doing down there, and the expectations that society has about that kind of body and assumed gender roles. We didn't have the words back then, couldn't even grasp the concept transgender. So when Kay came out at age 13, the only term any of us had at that time was bisexual. However, this puts the emphasis on who they were attracted to, not who they fundamentally are inside. Sexuality is not the same as gender identity. Quite honestly, I did not comprehend, and Kay could not explain, that what Kay actually meant was that their gender identity, who they fundamentally understood themselves to be, did not fit the masculine, feminine gender binary. Queer? Gender fluid? What did that even mean? This was something none of us understood then, and it was concerning to me as Kay's parent, but my confusion was nothing compared to the enormity of Kay's struggles with bouts of gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is distress about the misalignment between your assigned gender and your gender identity. It can be hard enough when the distress is caused by internal factors, like getting your period when you identify as masculine. But gender dysphoria can also get triggered when misgendered by others. This most often happens when someone uses the wrong pronouns. Kay uses they, them pronouns, and they mostly present as masc or androgynous. This is who my precious child truly is, inside and out. And the truth is, as we know after last night in Colorado Springs, there are too many places in our country where being who they truly are is not safe. My youngest, B, also identifies as gender non-binary and uses they, them pronouns. Although to most appearances they would appear to be cisgender femme, right? This is not how they feel inside, which is a reminder to us that someone's outward presentation does not necessarily indicate the pronouns that they use. People do not owe us specific or even consistent presentations of transness or non-binariness. Please do not assume someone's gender identity and preferred pronouns. I share this all with you today to raise awareness that there are people in our lives, people here in our church, people we know and love who are transgender, genderqueer, gender nonconforming, beautiful human beings who desire to belong in a beloved community that has their backs. We say that we are a welcoming congregation, but the hard truth is that precious and committed members of this community have made the painful decision to leave us, in part due to microaggressions like misgendering that made them feel unseen, unwelcome, and unsafe. Honoring every person's worth and dignity as unique and valuable human beings exactly as they are is part of our UU covenant with one another. Our mission statement calls us to connect bravely and always love. Honoring preferred pronouns is one of the ways we communicate, I see you. You matter. You belong here. I light this chalice to honor the courageous commitment it takes to live your whole truth out loud in this world, and to call us all back in to creating brave space in conscious covenant with all of our community members.
We are a promise-making, promise-breaking, and promise-remaking people. We are called not to be perfect, but to be faithful. In that spirit, each week, we speak our covenant aloud, all together. It is a reminder of the promises we make in this gathered community. In person and online, will you join as one as we say our covenant? We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other, to reach out and touch one another, to care with each other, and to seek the truth divine. So be it.
Will you join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation? One of the things that's challenging for me sometimes to respond to those words, will you join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation, is it requires an openness and engagement with those parts of you that are really hard, those parts that are grieving or struggling, that feel overwhelmed by the events of the world outside of us. It's easier to sort of wall that part of yourself off, right? And just not have to engage or deal with it. And instead do the thing that's right in front of you. But part of our practice as we gather each week is deliberately to open that door, even though it's hard, and to trust that the rivers of grief inside us won't carry us away. And we're not alone in that space. Knowing that, will you join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation? The poet Adrian Rich asks, what would it mean to live in a city whose people were changing each other's despair into hope? What would it feel like to know your country was changing? And though your life felt arduous, new and unmapped and strange, what would it mean to stand on the first page of the end of despair? Throughout the Psalms, the songs of the Hebrew Bible, there is a refrain that rises again and again in the poetry. How long? How long? How long must we endure? Those ancient people ask it with a fervor and a despair that we know. How long will goodness and hope abandon us? How long will violence visit us? How long will open and legal discrimination be allowed in this country? How long will we ask our siblings to prove their worth to us before we accept them? How long? How long? This is a time for lamentation. How long? And then hope. May we stand on the first page of the end of despair. We'll be together in silence for 7 breaths. Amen. We are none of us alone, though it may not feel that way. There's a thread that weaves through this gathered community, that weaves directly through our broken hearts, a fiber of compassion which comes from knowing and holding and transforming suffering. It ties us together as one, an unseen filament that connects every heart, breaking with joy and breaking with sorrow. Each week in the service, we set aside time in ritual to make visible the unseen interconnection of our hopes and our concerns. And for us gathered in person, I invite you, when the music begins, to come forward as you feel so moved. And as you wait, let your thinking quiet and your breath steady. Call to mind the sorrows and the joys which weigh you down, which lift you up. Silently take a stone in token of everything on your heart and place it into the earth, resting in something larger than any of us, a community connected by the concerns we carry.
a story tucked here in tight at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sits its sails to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends around. You can choose one special one. And the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. There are girls who grow up strong and bold. There are boys who quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some follow behind, some go in their own way in time. Some women love women, some men love men, some raise their children, some never do. You can dream all the dream, never reaching the end of everything possible for you. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts, by games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they'll give the same back to you. Oh, you can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know that I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends around. You can choose one special one. And the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done.
friend told me this story. She said, one night a couple of years ago, I found myself at a dinner party in the home of a transgender woman and her friend, the wife of a transgender woman. She says, I was surrounded by people transitioning between genders. Some had fully transitioned, whatever that means exactly. Some were still toying with the idea, and others were comfortable with their in-between stages, still learning on the way. The people who had more experience on that journey gave sage advice to those just beginning, and those just beginning listened and asked questions. Got to experience one person talking about how when he finally began to present as male in public, it was both terrifying and absolutely right. I felt the support in the room when others said, yeah, it felt the same for me too. There were so many stories of rejection and pain in the room, of not being accepted for who they were. And on a very basic human level, we all need love and acceptance. And these new friends of mine talked about how they had to prove their worth, prove they were worthy of love on a daily basis, prove they were worthy, regardless of the gender they presented as. And many of them faced divorce and the loss of children and jobs, which are also things that contribute to our identities, to who we say we are as people. And yet they carried on because they know they're living in the way that's right for them. They know that living any other way would literally kill them from the inside out. And it's a path they can't take anymore. That door's shut. And they have to take this new, harder road. But it's also one that brings great joy because it's the road of self-acceptance and love. It's the road where you finally know, yes, I'm living the life I'm supposed to be living. The right one for me. My friend said that night I got to experience my own discomfort. I just got to be with my own questions and know we're all deserving of love just for being human. And I got to experience love as they accepted me into their world, honored my discomfort, loved me as I am. I'm grateful for that. If you should find yourself, she says, at a dinner party, and you are uncomfortable for whatever reason, remember, we're on our own life journey, trying to live the best we know how right now. And let us remember, we don't have to understand and have all the details, the backstory, the history, the justification, and the explanation. We don't have to understand to love. And it's a radical act with potential to heal, simply to sit and to love. There is a story that we belong to, one of them, a story we belong to, everyone gathered in this room and beyond it. The story is what Theodore Parker, the 19th century Unitarian minister, Theodore Parker said, there is a moral arc to the universe. There's a trajectory to history, and our work is to bend that arc towards justice. There's a story we belong to. Martin Luther King called it beloved community, which is not just a community you find beloved, like your beloved coffee mug. Beloved community is a community of justice, which is what love looks like in public, a community of knowing and being known in the fullness of who we are. Jesus called that same thing the kingdom of heaven, which he said is not something waiting for us somewhere else after death, and it's not something that someone else, him included, is going to come fix for us. But it's a quality of living, it's an experience. It's something that exists in the space between us when we meet each other fully open-hearted and compassion. It's ours to build. We're part of that story, committed to it, to transformation of human community for the common good, for everyone, no exceptions. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold to the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And there's not an asterisk on that, right? It's not, we believe in the inherent, I'm looking over at it right there. There's no small print, even if you're in the back. It's not, we believe in the inherent worth of every person as long as you look masculine or feminine. It's not that we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person as long as you don't talk about or show or make visible your queerness. It's every person, period, regardless. We cisgendered people, though, need to move beyond tolerance, right? That grudging tolerance. And that means we've got some stuff to learn. So I want to share what I think amounts to like transgender 101 today. And there are going to be some folks in this room and online where this is new information and it's challenging and it's different. And there are going to be some folks in the room and online who feel like, yeah, we know this. Thank you. But maybe in this world, maybe talking about sex and gender and the differences between them, you feel like the rug has been pulled out from under you. Maybe you feel like, I'm talking to my cisgender folks here, maybe you feel like you grew up with a clear and common sense understanding of what gender was, and oh my God, all of a sudden, that isn't anymore? That's okay. I see you, I've been there. In our tradition, there is so much space to show up on any given Sunday with bewilderment or confusion or ignorance, and in our tradition, we don't stay there. An old Universalist clergyman asked by a reporter where the Universalists stood on some social program or another. He replied directly, "We don't stand, we move." So if we're serious about moving, let's make everything about sex and gender and sexuality more complicated than it used to be. In the old binary world of male and female, sex and gender and sexuality, it's all the same thing. We got to get more complicated. So sex means biological differences. Chromosomes, hormones in the body, internal and external sex organs. I don't often preach about sex organs. Mostly we just talk about organs in church. But that's sex, right? That's the physical stuff, anatomy. Maybe you remember from high school biology that people have 2 X chromosomes, or an X and a Y, and that determines sex. Turns out that's not true, because that's not a complete model of how sex works, how bodies works. There are people with 2 X chromosomes and a Y chromosome. There are people for all sorts of reasons might have 2X or an X and a Y chromosome, but not have the physical characteristics that are typically associated. You could have the genes for one sex, but because other genes that you have change the way those are expressed, you don't have the organs or the body shape or the other physical characteristics that typically go with those genes. And then some people are born with both sets of sex organs. And the umbrella term for all of this is intersex, and some studies suggest that 1% to 2% of all births everywhere always might be intersex. Millions and millions of people. All of which is to say that biological sex, already, the simple one, the easy one, way more complicated than either or, right? So there's sex, the physical. But on to gender. Gender's different. It may be that you're used to sex and gender being talked about, being treated interchangeably. But the way the world talks about sex and gender has changed in recent decades. Because rather than cis people, we'll get into that, rather than sort of the standard, the normal, the default, the dominant culture defining for everyone else what their experience is, we all started listening a lot more to trans folks, to queer folks, to folks whose experience is different. And so that's changed the conversation once we invited people in and listened seriously to what those experiences are. Okay, gender role is the social role expected by society based on sex. Gender role is when boys roughhousing, they're just being boys. Girls roughhousing is inappropriate and unladylike. Why? Keep asking why. There is no reason for that. It's like the one section of the toy store being boys' toys and another section being girls' toys. Why? I agree with your silence. Yes, there's not a reason for it. Take pink. A few centuries back, pink was decidedly a male color. Men wore pink, women did not wear pink. Stuff is arbitrary, even though it doesn't feel that way. Even though we all grew up and were socialized in a culture that said, oh, of course this is the way it is. That's the way the status quo hides. It hides by shaping our common sense notions about the way that things are, and then treating those common sense notions as if that's expected, inevitable, or natural and right. So gender identity, then, is your personal experience of your own gender. Do you feel male, female, both, neither? It's internal. It's your own sense of yourself. Transgender is when your sense of your gender doesn't line up with your sex. And the opposite is cisgender, when your sense of your gender, your internal understanding and sense of it, lines up with your sex, trans and cis. The trans author and professor Jennifer Finney Boylan, born in a male body, tells this story of her experience. She says, "My earliest memory, my first sense of self, is about being transgender. When I was 2 or 3, I was sitting beneath the ironing board as my mother ironed my father's shirts. There was a sizzle of steam as she shook her blue plastic water bottle onto the cotton and pressed it against the hot iron. I was on the floor, sitting in a shaft of sunlight. She said, 'Someday you'll wear shirts like this.' And I looked at her, not understanding. I thought, why would I ever wear shirts like my father? And since then, the thought that I was somehow wired for the wrong body was never out of my conscious mind. Although my sense of what it meant to be male or female certainly grew more complex as the years went by. I remember adolescence when it was as if all the girls I knew had boarded a ship and sailed out to sea, and I was left on the dock alone, knowing that I'd somehow been left behind. Jennifer Finney Boylan, then, as a child, male sex, female gender. As an adult, after years of work and struggle and internal work, she had surgery, and not everyone does, and it's not required. It's not like an obligation, but she chose to have surgery to affirm her gender. That is surgery for her sex, her physical characteristics, to match her gender, her internal sense of self. Catherine Birdsall, who's a trans retired Coast Guard officer, tells a similar kind of story. She says, "I was a compliant child, wanting to do what was expected of me. They said I was a boy, so I tried to be a boy, even though I knew I should be a girl. I thought my body would heal itself. Then everyone would know I was a girl. And in the meantime, I'd be a boy." She says, "I could usually pass as a man. There were plenty of times, though, when a man would look at me like, 'What planet are you from then?' Yo, when you look at people like that, they know you're looking at people like that. It's hard to play the role of someone you are not, day in and day out, and it became harder as the years passed until finally, at the age of 65, I knew I couldn't keep up the pretense much longer. I would go crazy or be dead." I let the cage door swing open, a little gathering support where I could. I knew I faced rejection, derision, ridicule, violence, perhaps even death. But I could no longer keep the essential me hidden and caged. This sense of gender identity not matching sex is a big part of what it means for a lot of folks to be trans. But it's also not the whole story, because part of what trans folks say is not just I was born in the wrong body, but something also that's beyond this gender binary. It's not the case for everyone that the story is I'm a male born in a female body. For some people, it's, man, I don't feel male or female. Beyond the gender binary is genderqueer. And genderqueer people include those who feel their identity isn't exclusively masculine or feminine, non-binary. You might feel bi-gender or gender fluid or move between the two. You might identify as no gender, agender, or as a third gender, which incidentally is a category, neither male nor female, that many, many, many past and present cultures have. The notion of a gender binary between male and female is a distinctly European creation. One genderqueer person writes of their process of discovering their identity. I struggle because when I began to think of gender as a spectrum, right, as like a single axis, I thought that boy and girl were the poles, and all other genders had to fall somewhere in the middle between this, right? Like, how much boy and how much girl do I feel? But this person says, once again, I wasn't a girl, but I wasn't a boy either. So this set me back a ways, until later I realized neither was also a choice. And at first I was hesitant to embrace the label agender because of my femme expression, but no other label felt right. As a practical matter in all of this, cisgender folks may wonder what to do if you see someone and you don't know what their gender is. You're walking down the street, you see someone, is this a man, is this a woman? And I'll give you a very practical one-step guide. Here's what to do. Nothing. Nothing. You're fine, they're fine, let them live their life. Their gender is not about you at all. Do nothing, don't worry about it. Let them live. I stumble sometimes on the irony of this because I feel like this is one of the most profoundly conservative beliefs to express. Your life does not impact me, you get to live it. To me, that feels like such like a fundamentally sort of old school frontier conservative value, but apparently not. You're in coffee hour, and someone seems to you to be male with a full beard and lipstick and eyeliner and fabulous nails. Here's the question to pose to them. How was your week? All right, that does not require any comment or action from you whatsoever at all. Trans lives matter whether you're butch or femme or gender queer. Trans lives matter no matter what you look like or who you are. And there's no qualifier there. There's no caveat or catch or anything you have to do to earn it. As Unitarian Universalists, we don't stand, we move. We learn and we change and we grow, and that's our work. In that process, cis folks, I will 100% guarantee you, y'all gonna get it wrong. Gonna get it wrong over and over. Thank goodness, thank God if you like, that we are not here to be perfect. We would be in serious trouble. We are here to learn and grow and change. If you get someone's pronouns wrong and they correct you, you just say, oh, thank you, sorry about that. And you move right on. It doesn't require groveling or apology or guilt to walk away with you. Our work is just to keep on trying to do better, bit by bit. I feel like it makes it sound so simple when I say it that way. But also, I think it really is that simple. It requires some unlearning, and it requires some new learning. It requires the willingness, and in fact, the spiritual discipline and practice to see the people you meet as people, first of all. The Quakers like to say there's that of God in every one of us. And maybe that works with your theology, and maybe it doesn't, but the point being that in old school Quakerism, they'll address each other as thee and thou instead of you, as a way to honor that spark of the divine that's in them. When they greet each other and ask, how are they doing? What they're saying is, I see past whatever this presentation is to the glorious and beautiful and beloved, to the transcendent human being that is inside you. And that's our work too. Simple, difficult, onwards. Amen. Will you rise and embody your spirit? Let's sing together. It's How Could Anyone? Thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to try something a little bit different today, if you all will be willing. For this one, it will be a cappella, which means without any other instruments. And you can sing along or you can stay where you are, not phonating. But I would love for everybody in person, online, to feel free to close your eyes. And imagine a place where you feel loved. And it could be this church, it could be your home, it could be with a really good friend. Just meditate on that. And I'll start singing. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. Thank you all.
This month, our offering goes to Boulder Food Rescue. Boulder Food Rescue facilitates the redistribution of food that would otherwise be wasted. They take food directly to no-cost grocery programs located at community-led distribution points, such as affordable housing sites and preschools. At Boulder Food Rescue, they operate on trust and relationships. The community-led distribution at no-cost grocery programs provides a more affirming, accessible, and effective program. Many people require charitable services, but in our society, shame, stigma, and isolation keep people from using such benefits. The way Boulder Food Rescue does their work reverses this phenomenon. Programs are run by community members, which communicates trust and counteracts shame and stigma. People contribute to the programs they use, rather than feeling just like a charity case. Community members provide one another with material, informational, and emotional support. Here is a quote from the grocery program coordinator. "The special thing is the way we distribute the food strategically. In addition, the people who distribute it are volunteers who do not expect anything in return. I thank all the staff and volunteers who make it possible." I invite you to give as generously as you are able. For those online, you can use the QR code found in the link. For those gathered in person, you can scan the QR code or make a donation as the ushers now pass the baskets. May our gifts be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love to the Boulder community and to the wider world.
May the blessings of generosity rest on us. Our work for justice in the world happens in different and overlapping and interlocking ways. Work for justice is financial support and assistance and service. Work for justice is education. It's learning and making visible things that weren't in our consciousness before. Work for justice is direct action that brings pressure for change. Work for justice is changing the systems. In all of those things, I'm grateful to be in it with you. Our worship ends and our service to the world and to each other begins. Go in peace and amen. Will you rise in body or spirit? Let's close in song.
Go